Hi there, Leslie Khoo here. How are you? In my previous video, I have shared with you my view regarding sci-fi, a genre that I liked. Today, I want to share with you another category that I like, that is supernatural. What is supernatural? To me, a supernatural story is a story that has entities or events that we do not encounter or do not happen in our daily life. It has to be like that, yes? Else, it would not be supernatural. Unlike sci-fi, cutting-edge technology is not necessary to be involved in a supernatural story. Of course, you can add cutting-edge technology to a supernatural story, but that has to link to a supernatural entity or event. For example, a device was invented to open a portal to hell or a door to hell and let all the demons cross over. Or let's say a pair of glasses that allow you to see ghosts, to see mythical creatures. That's how I define the supernatural genre. I'm sure there are other people who have a different definition, different idea about a supernatural story. Why do I like supernatural stories and write supernatural stories? My fourth book, Hashtacs, is under the supernatural category. In case you want to know the books that I have written, you are more than welcome to check them out on Amazon. Like sci-fi stories, supernatural stories also give me huge freedom to create the characters, the environment, and also the events. Having constraints, like I said before, having constraints restricts creativity. I don't like situations where I have to change some features or stop adding or delete some features of a story because they do not make sense in reality. I like to write stories with a background, say, that is different, okay? At least a bit different from the one that we are living in. And this is the same as how I feel about the world of a sci-fi story. Let's look at the world of a supernatural story. And let's see, there is, how should I put it, a major difference between the worlds or the background environments of sci-fi and supernatural. In a sci-fi world, I can add many things, be it high-tech or aliens or plants, animals from other planets, but not in a supernatural world. In a supernatural world, the environment is basically the same as the world that we are living in now. Unless, say, I add in a portal that can bring the characters of the story to another world, for example. One point to note is that the world through the portal is not to another planet. If that's the case, that will be a sci-fi story. The world, or that world that the portal, you open the portal, you go to, is another world that coexists with ours in another dimension. Or put it this way, traveling to that world has to be through a portal that is opened by, for example, magic or a key or something or a device buried in a remote area for thousands of years. No one can go there even with the most advanced and fastest spaceship. So, in general, the world of a supernatural story is to a large extent the same as ours, maybe with slight modifications. In a nutshell, this is how I see the world of a supernatural story. Now, let's talk about the characters in a supernatural story. There are two groups of characters. In the story, there is at least one character from each group. Among them, one is human, while the other must be from the supernatural side. For the supernatural character, the most common one is definitely ghost. That's the entity that we always think of when we talk about supernatural. But then, because it's supernatural, don't forget, I can also use demons, angels, vampires, werewolves, or creatures from folklore. Or if I want to, I can create my own supernatural entities. To a certain degree, the characters of a supernatural story are similar to those of a fantasy story. However, unlike the fantasy category, the human and the supernatural characters do not occupy the world like, say, the residents of different countries. Yeah? In a fantasy story, they live openly in different parts of the same world. The supernatural characters, however, live in the dark. The human characters are not, say, aware, put it this way, of their presence. Then, one thing to bear in mind, very important, no extraterrestrial life forms. Because I don't want to turn my story from supernatural to sci-fi if I intend to write a supernatural story. As for the features, I reckon it is not necessary to follow strictly the features of the creatures as we have been told since young, or as in some tales told by the older generations, like grandparents or great-grandparents. Modification may make the supernatural characters more interesting, as it will give the readers another perspective of the characters. For instance, in my book, Chameleon, one of the major characters is a soul, or some people may say a ghost. I know, my second book, Chameleon, is under the sci-fi category. I added a soul as a major character. Well, the purpose of bringing this character up here is to highlight the modifications that apply to this character. In the book, a soul is the energy released after a person passes away. As a soul being in the form of energy does not have a vessel, it does not look like a human. For those people who can see it, a soul looks like say a distortion of light in a small portion of the air. In the mid-air, you see something floating and transparent. A soul does not have eyes, so it cannot see anything like we do. Instead, it being in the form of energy is able to sense the energy emitted from the living and non-living things. Non-living things, for example, like vehicles, roads, buildings, chairs, tables, doors, and books. So what it can see are the outline of the living and non-living things. That also means that it is unable to see images like pictures, photos, and content of a book, because they are not 3D. A soul in that book, cannot see colors. So these are some of the modified features of a soul in my book, Chameleon. Of course, all these modifications were not made random. They were made that way because the story needed them to be like that. Okay? It's not to create them for the sake of creation. Now, the next element that I want to touch on is events. As I said in my previous video, an event is something that plays a crucial role in the flow of a story. In a supernatural story, a major event often involves the interactions between the human and supernatural characters. For example, in my book, Hi Dad, the interactions of the human character, Sandra, and the supernatural character are the most important element of the story. Because all those, say, interactions between them lead to other events that have impacts on Sandra's life. So the events of a story are very important, crucial. They serve to connect each stage of the story so that this different part of the story can be combined to make a whole story or to make the story as a whole. Again, I would like to highlight the events, the features of the main characters and the other characters, and say the existence of the other characters are created for a purpose. For example, in my book, Hi Dad, the main character, Sandra, met her neighbor during her morning run. The objective is for Sandra to remember something important after what her neighbor says. It is not, say, a hi-bye situation. It is not like two neighbors bumping into each other. No, it's not that. There is a purpose. The story environment, the features of the characters, and their existence have a role to play in the development of the story. Nothing is or should be created for the sake of creation. This is one thing that an author has to bear in mind. Okay, that's about all regarding one of my favorite category, supernatural. See you in the next video. Peace.